And welcome back, folks, to more 428 Shibuya Scramble. Last time we played, we hit mostly everyone's final moment to be continued. The only one left is Osawa, and last time we saw him, he was getting the news that his daughter was killed, but that changed. So I'm only human after all. Something wrong, Mr. Osawa. Kajiwara was leaning in, looking concerned. Osawa came back into the moment with a start and realized he had buried his face in his hands. No, he muttered, looking up. Just getting angry, yelling at people. I'm not good with that sort of thing. I don't like it. He picked up the music player and fidgeted with the earbuds as he spoke. Well, getting angry and yelling at people, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's just human. It's human to do those kinds of things. I often said that he was cold and mechanical. Her sarcasm only underlined a fact he'd always lived with, that he didn't know how to conduct himself like a human being. If you get angry, you show it, Kajiwara said. If you get sad, you show it. It's human nature to let other people know how we're feeling after all. But what if doing that hurts the other person? That's when you apologize, sir. We're just learning how to be human. It occurred to Osawa that he'd never tried to tell anyone how he felt before. He never felt the need to. And yet, right now, he suddenly felt that if his daughters were to appear before him, he might blurt out everything he'd ever left unsaid. It was a terrifying thought. Darling? I opened the door and stepped into the room. The detectives are asking for you. It seems there's been a development. We'll be right there. Osawa and Kajiwara hurried out of the room. Whoa! So loud. Alright, we gotta find a jump. Probably this one. There it is. Jump. Before the news was shared with the Osawas, the members of the investigation team quietly briefed Detective Kajiwara. Osawa and I sat on the sofa on the far side of the room watching. They could see Kajiwara go pale. He wiped the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief several times. Bad news, Osawa thought. Mr. Osawa, ma'am. Kajiwara shuffled his way over to them at last. We've just gotten word from headquarters. Wait, what's headquarters? Right now, the task force is in uproar after a change in direction from the higher-ups. The detectives... Who? We can jump to Kano if we wanted to. The detectives who were on the scene have been ordered to discontinue the kidnapping investigation. He hesitated ominously. Osawa braced himself. Please, let's hear it. It would seem, actually, that your daughter, Maria, is safe. What? Osawa felt an unexpected surge of relief. You mean it? The case has been solved, added I. For a moment, they almost sounded like a happily married couple. It was only the stern look on Kajiwara's face that gave them a pause. However, as of yet, we do not have her in custody. But I'm not sure I understand, Osawa said. You know she's alive, but you don't have her. How? Deep furrows appeared in Kajiwara's forehead. I'm sorry, sir. The information we've received from up top is complicated. We've confirmed that she was able to escape confinement. It's just... The detective gave every appearance of holding something back. If there's something you need to tell us, then just say it, Osawa told him. It would seem that Maria has been infected with a virus. Infected? Osawa felt as if a taloned claw had just clutched his heart. It's not one I've ever heard before, but apparently it's called the UA virus. The spaghetti virus? Osawa's vision went dark. He felt as if he'd plunged into a black void of despair. Darling? I asked raspily. Wait, are we actually Resident Evil now? Yes, actually. Very Resident Evil. Except there's no residents. Just evil. She didn't need to put her fears into words. Osawa felt them just as plainly in his own gut. You're an expert in virology, aren't you, Mr. Osawa? Kajiwara said. Are you familiar with this UA virus? Osawa held up a hand to forestall further questions. There was no time for that. How many hours ago was she infected? He demanded. I wasn't told that much. Is that important to know, sir? Depending on when Maria was infected, we may or may not still be. Osawa trailed off abruptly as the reality of the situation struck home. This wasn't the same as when Hitomi had been infected. Right now, there was no way of getting Tanaka's cooperation, which meant there was no way of accessing the antiviral storage. In other words, getting the cure to Maria would be impossible. Osawa's head swam. Swam? Swam. Detective Kajiwara, I beg of you. Your people need to catch Tanaka as soon as possible. I can't share the details, but if you don't, something terrible is going to happen. Oh yeah, we found out what happened to Tanaka. Just then, Kajiwara's cell phone rang. He picked up quickly. What you say? All your base. The detective's shout shattered the anxious silence that had fallen. I shuddered visibly at the outburst. Kajiwara nodded sharply, still listening. More creases formed in his forehead. Understood. I'll let them know. He hung up. All eyes were on him. That was headquarters. Osawa swallowed the lump in his throat. He could feel himself quaking all over. A minivan we believed belonged to the syndicate exploded near Jinan in Shibuya. A body was found amongst the burning wreckage of the vehicle. Who was it? Osawa interjected. Tell me! Please don't let it be Maria. Please don't let it be Hitomi. Kajiwara took a breath before speaking. We've conclusively identified the remains as Mr. Tanaka's. No! The cry was visceral, almost bird-like. Osawa looked around in surprise. It was I. It's not true! You're lying! Her shrill screams reverberated through the room. Osawa felt like he wanted to scream too. With Tanaka dead, there was no way to get the antiviral. Which meant that Maria was going to die. To be continued. This ain't the old SOS anymore. I'm gonna stop you. Oh, how touching. What do you mean you'll kill me? In order to minimize the spread of the virus. Games just got crazy. Alright, we get to choose who we playing as. Got Aki, Kano, Minorikawa, Osawa, and Maria. Oh, Maria. I walk counter to the throng of people heading towards the scene of the explosion. What is the scene of the explosion? Well, the explosion that happened in Shibuya Jinan 1 Chome, near the intersection of Konan Dori and Oregon Hill. There's a gun pressed against my back, leaving me no choice but to continue marching forward. I don't have time for this right now. There's something I need to do. My frantic sense of urgency grows and grows. Kanan. The only clue I have is that name. The other hazy snippets that have surfaced in my memory provide no answers. Please, just tell me, I murmur. Do you know who I am? When the man with the cane doesn't answer, I stop in my tracks. I'm going to start shouting, I warn him. If you want to find out who you are, then do what I say. The barrel of the gun jabs more forcefully in my back. Once we find Hitomi Osawa, you'll remember, whether you like it or not. I guess I have no choice but to keep moving, I guess. Are your memories really that precious to you? The man mutters as we start to move again. I'm taken aback by the question. Well, yes, I mean, isn't that pretty normal? There's a bit of a pause before he replies. His voice is sad and distant. You're not going to remember just the good times, you know. What do you mean? I mean, that sad and painful memories are going to resurface too. I guess I really hadn't thought about that. But still, whatever kind of memories they are, they're all part of me. I'm the person I am now because of that sorrow and pain too. I want to remember. I want to remember who I am. The gunman directs me dispassionately along a series of quiet side streets. Right here. Stop at his words. In front of us is an old multi-tenant office building. We ride the elevator to the 8th floor, then use the emergency exit to take the stairs up to the rooftop. A cool breeze blows across my cheek. Sit down there. I do as he says, settling myself on the outdoor air conditioning unit. The man lowers his gun, but keeps it in his hand. We'll wait here for a bit. For how long? He lets out a rueful chuckle. Guess we'll have to wait and see. I decide there's no point in trying to fight with him. For now, I have to hope he's telling the truth, and whatever's coming will help me get my memories back. If I don't know my past, how can I know what to do about this Kanan stuff or anything else? Lucky, what will you do when you remember who you are? Explode. Straight up. I stare up at the sky as I wait for whatever this assassin is waiting for. The silence between us is suffocating. Finally, I can't take it any longer. Hey, so I think this is yours. I hold out the notebook I picked up earlier. The man's surprise is plain on his face. Where did you get that? Saw the picture inside. He snatches the book out of my hand. Then he flips through it, looking sad. I'm afraid that another agonizing silence is about to descend when he speaks at last. This is a picture of me and my childhood friends. His voice is low and quiet. We were inseparable back when we were kids. The boy here, he liked to fiddle with machines. Always doing things like taking apart radios and whatnot and putting them back together. He was a total bookworm too, so he got picked on a lot. But I was always there to save him from the bullies. All of a sudden, the guy's in a sharing mood, I guess. I can feel his aura of murderous rage starting to abate. The girl here was the same age as us, but she felt more like a big sister. Whatever stupid things my other friend and I got up to, she was always willing to laugh it off. I decide to stay quiet and keep listening. What was her name? I asked, curious to know more. So, was this some sort of love triangle? Well, okay then, I guess I'm the nosy sort. Probably gonna have a chuckle. So was this some sort of love triangle? Well, okay. Guess I'm the nosy sort. The man grimaces, but nods. When we were in high school, she told me that she liked me. So the two of us started dating. And what about the other boy? I ask. The man casts his eyes down, but doesn't answer. He was in love with her too, wasn't he? I wound up breaking up with the girl, and he was furious with me for it. The man carefully slips the notebook into the pocket inside his jacket. I'm incapable of making other people happy. Why's that? Because that's the sort of person I am. Oh, I was right! He lets out a little chuckle, then stands up and brushes the dust off of his pants. He looks strangely lonely. Well, that's it. We had a little love story with Maria, but now Minorikawa is still all busted up. Minorikawa needed to get back to the editing office right away. Despite the urgency, he barely stumbled along. He was swaying on his feet, only half aware of where he was even going. No, this is all some sick joke. He couldn't just accept that Toyama was dead. He let out a lifeless sigh. A cynical smile crept on his face. The man always did insist on having his own way, but killing himself. Back when he was still a novice reporter, Minorikawa had written a piece about a middle school girl who committed suicide. His school had made a statement denying that bullying had been a factor. So most of the media had reported that she had a nervous breakdown. It's Persona 5. Had a nervous breakdown over entrance exams. What is a nervous breakdown? Well, it's a period of mental illness manifesting as a panic disorder, stress-induced anxiety, or the like. The term is commonly used to refer to serious health issues such as schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, manic depression, as well as the buildup of more minor stresses as a part of everyday life. Because it is so broadly and vaguely defined, it is generally avoided in psychiatric context. But something about the case had kept nagging at him. Had her death really been a suicide? The more people he interviewed about the incident, the more his doubts grew. The City News editor, however, would not allow him to conduct a follow-up investigation, and the reason why was simple. This was the sort of thing that happened every day. Couldn't waste time on a case that was already on the books. It was more important for a reporter to find news stories than to squander time engrossed in a case that was old news. Minorikawa understood the editor's decision well enough, but that didn't mean he had to like it. He had been sulking up on the roof, slowly nursing a cigarette, when the paper's local news copy editor— what is a copy editor? At a newspaper, an employee who evaluates the quality and suitability of a reporter's copy and coverage. Effectively, the boss of a group of reporters. However, the copy editor typically works under a section editor who has the final say about what makes the page. A middle management position caught between upstart reporters and an angry section chief. The copy editor, Toyama, happened to drop by. Did they say no to the follow-up interviews? Toyama asked. About that girl's suicide? Who's that girl? The name of the girl who killed herself was Chiharu Fuyutsuki. After reading her diary, Minorikawa became convinced that it was an ordinary suicide. 6 years from now, Minorikawa will run into a certain teacher, and the investigation into the student's death will be reopened. But that's another story for another time. Yeah. Minorikawa expelled a plume of smoke along with his sigh. Nothing tasted quite as bad as a cigarette when he was down in the dumps. So what are you gonna do? Not gonna do anything, Minorikawa said. The editor told me no. Oh? Editor said not to? You sound like a child. The rebuff made Minorikawa tempers flare. There's other interviews to do. I want to do a follow-up on this, but there isn't any time. Oh, you dumbass. Freaking knocked him. Toyama hauled off and hit him right across the face. What happened to I write what I feel in my heart? That's the one thing I refuse to back down on. What happened to the guy who used to bitch at me like that? Toyama's words hit their mark with a painful precision. The interviews aren't over until you have what you need. Shonen energy, yeah, really. We can only know each other's feelings through our fists. Now, you refuse to let them be over. You go after the truth no matter what anyone tells you. Isn't that what being a journalist is all about? No, not anymore. Minorikawa scowled in chagrin. The man was exactly right. Until you have what you need. Those words had struck with Minorikawa ever since. In fact, he quit the paper to become a freelancer because he couldn't do his job the way he wanted while trapped in that hierarchy. Now he wondered, what if Toyama hadn't killed himself, but had instead been the victim of a terrorist attack? Then after considering the idea for a moment, he thought bitterly, so what? The reasons and details hardly mattered at this point. What mattered was that Toyama was dead. Minorukawa sat down listlessly and stared up at the sky. The blank swath of blue made him feel all the more worn out. Just what had all of the days running around been for? He felt so empty, so hollowed out by loss. All his motivation had drained away. He had no idea what he should do next. Hey, Minoru Minorukawa, what should you do? He tried to listen to his inner voice. You've forgotten your passion. You need to get that back. Stand up. Right now, you just need to forge ahead. Passion. You've forgotten your passion. You need to get that back. Yeah. That was his only option, really. He needed to turn back the clock to reclaim that fire that used to burn inside him. And he knew just how to do that. Before he could, however, a young man stumbled across his path, taking a nasty fall on the pavement. Ow! Oh darn, that hurts! The youngster scrambled back to his feet and turned to Minorukawa with a snarl. What are you looking at, pal? The young man clutched a piece of timber like a club. There was a nasty gleam in his eye. I'm not looking at anything, Minorukawa sighed. I just happened to be looking in your direction. Shut your yap! Apologize, biatch. Now! The punk raised his cudgel. What for? You tripped me, man. Ain't you gonna apologize for that? The kid had stumbled on his own, but probably was too embarrassed to admit it. Guess he's gotta vent his anger at someone. Listen, kid, Minorukawa said. It's not my fault you're such a klutz. What does a klutz mean? You know, like the pedal in a car that's got a manual transmission? Oh, that's a clutch. Okay, so then like lumps of earth or clay? Oh, those are clods, you say? Right, well, so then we're talking about a sort of societal get-together for coffee and conversation. Oh, right, that's a clutch. Is it when you try to fix something using stuff that really isn't meant for that purpose? Oh, that's a kludge. Okay, well, that doesn't help. The hell you just say to me? You got a death wish, pal? With a murderous glare, the punk advanced on him, brandishing his weapon. Hey, Minorukawa said. Is it fun hitting people with that thing? All right, I'm sorry. Bring it on. Bring it on. What are you gonna do, hit me? Man who got hit. The punk swung his wooden club without a moment's hesitation. Struck Minorukawa in the shoulder, knocking him off balance. Whoa, okay, don't really bring it on. Nah, man, it's too late for takebacks. With a nasty little grin, the young fellow swung again and again, catching Minorukawa in the arm and side. Only when the journalist was curled up in a battered ball on the ground did the kid finally let up. Good to see a little warm-up in before I take down that other biatch. Weapon still in hand, the punk marched off towards Dogenzaka. Hey, Are you okay? Minoruka was stirred to find Kimizuka at his side. Once again, the man had impeccable timing. Do you need a ride somewhere? Maybe, sir? The driver asked, keeping his tone polite. Yeah, I do. To the hospital. Was that really the right choice? No. Pummeled. Let's see if we, what if we changed our, we gotta forge ahead. Okay, it doesn't really matter. He couldn't let things end like this, and he just still didn't have what he needed for his article, so took a deep breath, readying to get back on his feet. Young man stumbled. Is it fun hitting people with that thing? All right, I'm sorry. What do we do? Because I'm pretty sure he's going to hit you with this. Is not reading the text in a text-based game quiet quitting? Or I'm not reading the text twice. Is it fun hitting people with that thing? The corner of the punk's mouth curled up. Oh yeah, real fun. Only a dumb A beats people up with their bare hands. You just wind up hurting your fists. If you're gonna enjoy some violence, you gotta have yourself a weapon. Aha, I see. In that case, maybe give it a rest with that stick, yeah? Huh, what for? The punk scowled in irritation. Don't get me wrong, Minorukawa said. I'm just saying there's gotta be better weapons than that. Something that could take a man down in a single blow. The kid stopped to consider Minorukawa's words for a moment. I getcha. Yeah, you might be right about that. And I think I have just the thing. May as well go with my usual. He tossed the piece of wood on the side of the road. Don't you go anywhere until I get back. Got it? Yeah, sure thing. Minorukawa watched as the punk headed back the way he came. Man, he murmured, what a dummy. What a dummy. Looking around, he spotted a taxi parked close by. It was Kimizuka. You need a ride, sir? Kimizuka asked, in politeness as he opened the back door. If you're heading to that publishing office again, I can get you there in 10 minutes. Kimizuka's driving was as smooth as always. He wove his way skillfully through a series of back streets. There was some big explosion earlier, he explained. The main roads are all gridlocked. Yeah, Minorukawa muttered. I was there when it happened. Oh wow, really? I'm glad to see you're not hurt then. Still, what a terrible thing. That minivan. I hear someone was inside when it exploded. I'm not sure if you were aware. Yeah, I'm aware. Oh, nothing gets past the reporter like you, I see. Kimizuka flashed Minorukawa an improving smile through the rearview mirror. How much have you heard then? Rumor has it that the person who died was a middle-aged man. Oh, huh? Heh, we taxi drivers tend to hear quite a bit ourselves. Kimizuka chuckled, but Minorukawa just cast his eyes down forlornly. You look tired, sir. Yeah, I guess so. His reply was barely audible. Suddenly, someone rushed out into the street right in front of the cab. Look out! Aki! There was a heavy thunk as the taxi crashed into the pedestrian. Screeching to a halt, Kimizuka and Minorukawa jumped out of the vehicle to find a young man splayed out on the street. "Hey," the driver called, "you all right?" The fallen pedestrian was practically still a kid, and he wasn't moving. Kimizuka hunkered down and jostled his shoulder, and his expression stiffened in alarm. Minorukawa checked the young man's pulse, but couldn't detect any heartbeat. "Oh no," Kimizuka said. "This is..." Tears began to well up in his eyes. Minorukawa turned to him in surprise. "You knew him?" "I did." Kimizuka cradled the young man in his arms. "I'm sorry, but you'll have to find yourself another taxi," he said. "I'm going to turn myself in to the police." Looking down at the boy's unmoving form, Minorukawa felt a pang of guilt. "No," he said, "I'm the one who's been asking you to drive around so recklessly all day. This is on me too, but I'll go with you to the cops." The two men decided to head to the station together to surrender themselves. There probably wouldn't be the time to work on writing articles while they were being interrogated, but that's just how it'd have to be. This was the right thing to do. Minorukawa just had to keep telling himself that, knowing that it was the truth. Dun, 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 dun. Shouldn't at least call an ambulance? Well, probably. Yeah, he's also dead, so I don't know. Well, let's play as Aki, the undead survivor. Aki could hear an ambulance and police sirens wailing on the main road. He looked down at Hitomi, slumped on a park bench beside him. "You're sure you're not hurt?" he asked quietly, offering her a bottle of water. "No, I'm okay." Hitomi took a sip from the bottle. "Thanks. I think I've managed to calm down some." Some of the color had finally returned to her face. "So, Aki began hesitantly. Inside that minivan, Maria wasn't in there. There was a relief in her voice, but also a note of pathos. "I got a look through the windshield and there was a man laid out in the back seat, but nobody else." The dark cloud lifted from Aki's face. "So it wasn't your sister?" "No, I didn't see his face. Just that he was wearing a business suit." Aki felt the tension ebbing from his body. "That's good then, that it wasn't her. I'd been worried." It's a shame about the poor devil who had been killed, though. Who was it? And why had he been there? "So, I guess now we're on a leads," Hitomi murmured. She just hung her head. "We could try the surveillance center again for now," Aki said. "It'll probably give us better odds of finding your sister than walking around." "I guess you're right." "Shall we then?" Hold on. Aki had a sudden flash of inspiration. "My house is actually a lot closer from here. Maybe I should ask my dad if we can check the cameras from home. You can do that? We have the same system at our house. I'm sure my dad will let us use them." Two got up and headed for Endo Electronics. Aki decided to let his father know that they were coming. He turned on his phone as they walked along. He had it off for a while, so first he checked his voicemail. There was one message. Wondering who might have called, he played it back. Is this Aki Endo's personal cell phone? "This is Dr. Saeki from Shibuya Central Hospital." "Saeki? Oh, that's Saichi Saeki. heart specialist, and Suzune's attending physician. Suzune, who is Aki's sister, a preeminent surgeon who had successfully performed the Batista procedure, wherein the left ventricle is reconstructed after a third of it had been removed. Aki's expression stiffened. He pressed the phone closer to his ear. There's been a sudden change in Suzune's condition. I tried calling your home as well. Got no answer. I thought the same thing. Batista, the wrestler. The wrestler. Aki felt the edges of his vision growing dim. As her brother, it would be good if you can come to the hospital as soon as possible. It's... Aki? Hitomi's voice was full of concern. Sorry, I just gotta make a call here. Fingers trembling, Aki dialed his house. The phone rang several times before switching over to the answering machine. Damn it. Where the hell are you, Dad? What's wrong? Hitomi asked. It's Suzune. It sounds like things have gotten pretty bad. Well then, we need to get to the hospital right away, Hitomi said. She sounded as anxious as Aki was. We can't go yet. Aki shook his head quietly. First, we have to save your sister. Hitomi bristled angrily at that. What are you talking about? She grabbed Aki by the arm and shook him. Right now, you need to be thinking about your sister. I can't. I made a promise to Suzune. A promise to help people and see things through to the end when something important's on the line. She struggled to get the words out. If I break that promise, then I really am no good to her. But Hitomi didn't look like she was going to back down. Oi! Get back here! A threatening shout rung out from nearby. Aki looked around, startled, and saw a boy about high school age bolting out from behind a building on the side street. Several slightly older young men were hot on his heels. Aki knew their faces all too well. They were all members of SOS. They caught their quarry just before he could make it out into the main road. Gotcha, newbie. So the kid they were after must have been a member too. Let me go. Oh, we'll let you go, all right. After you pay up. One of the young men snatched the boy by the collar and shoved him against the wall of a nearby building. Ow! The boy's face scrunched up. What are you talking about? Playing dumb, huh? Interjected one of the onlookers. We told you that members all have to pay monthly dues, yeah? The privilege of getting to call yourself SOS don't come free after all. Aki felt his blood boil. Aki, as SOS, was trying to pull a shakedown on this new kid under the guise of calling in dues. What's a shakedown? Yeah, well, it's a slang for extortion, a full-fledged crime. Naturally, the direct shakedown, give me all your money, punk, is quite unpleasant. But more roundabout ways of being shaken down can still leave a bad taste in one's mouth. Someone who was surrounded on the street by 8 people in pompadours who said, begging your pardon, but could you please hand over your money, might suffer no physical harm, but still would be the victim of a shakedown. It would have been unthinkable for them to do something like this back when Aki was running the show. I love the writing in this. I wish more VNs were like this. Yeah, it's pretty good. Hey, he barked. Let the kid go. He marched towards the group. Say what now? They turned to look, their faces immediately going pale. Oh, hey, Aki. Just let him go. Aki focused his glare on the fellow holding the kid until he released his grip. You guys always go around doing stuff like this? None of the gang members answered. They merely turned their gazes glumly to the ground. Hey! Aki turned to the younger boy. Since when have they been doing this? But of course, he realized there was no way the newbie would be able to tell him. Never mind, you can go. Aki gestured towards the main road. The boy was quick to run off. Aki waited until the boy was gone before turning back to the others. Does Susumu know you're going around collecting dues like this? He asked. Man, we don't gotta tell you that, one of them muttered. Not since you deserted. What did you just say? Aki leaned in close, getting right in the guy's face. He was met with a defiant sneer. This ain't the old SOS anymore. Not the old SOS. Aki thought back to the other gang members he'd run into earlier, the malicious gleam in their eyes. That guy. Pretty sure he said his name was Kiryu? Back when Aki had been in with SOS. Would never let a guy like that get away with acting all high and mighty. Now it seems like these young fellows were ready to follow suit, eager to take him down a peg. Your old news, pal. It's your business to tell us how to do things. Aki felt a confusing flood of anger and sadness that he couldn't quite control. I'm not messing around here, you guys. He grabbed the nearest punk by the collar and hefted him up in the air. Then someone shouted from behind him, Hey, what are you doing? Aki put the guy down and turned around to see Susumu standing there. Mind telling me just what's going on here, Aki? Susumu flashed his underlings a sharp glare. They immediately took to their heels. Aki wasn't just about to let them go, he raced after them. Just what the hell was going on with SOS? Aki needed to talk to Susumu. I asked what was going on here. There was a threatening note in Susumu's voice. That's what I want to know. What the hell's happened to SOS, man? Susumu's face twisted with displeasure. You're an outsider now. That's none of your business. I don't give a damn if it's my business or not. When I left you in charge of SOS, You shut your damn mouth, Susumu roared. Yeah, that's right, you left me in charge. So don't you dare give me any lip about how I run things. Sudden ferocity left Aki at a loss for words. You're not the one busting your A out here. I am. Susumu stalked towards Aki, his face red with emotion. I've had to work so hard to keep things going with you gone. Do you have any idea what it's been like? Do you know what I had to put myself through to keep SOS together? There was nothing Aki could say to that. He just kept his mouth shut and let Susumu talk. You were gone. I thought maybe I could do things like you did. All at once, Susumu decided to deflate a little. He hung his head, hiding his face. And if I couldn't be like you, then... Hey man, I get it, and I'm sorry. But Susumu kept his face averted. Please, he muttered. Stay out of our business. Then he turned on his heel and headed off without looking back. Aki watched him leave, feeling a painful sting. Aki? Hitomi asked after Susumu was gone. Are you sure you're okay leaving things like this? Aki shrugged heavily. Susumu said he was doing what he can. It's not my place to butt in. He turned his back on Hitomi. He still needed a moment. Aki, you're being unreasonable. About what? He felt like he had been wounded to his very core, and he wasn't sure what to do about it. You want to help people who are in trouble, right? Hitomi asked quietly. Yeah, I guess. Aki's voice was glum. Well, I'm in a whole lot of trouble right now. Yeah, I know that. No, Aki, you don't. Hitomi's tone was clipped and firm. Please go to your sister. What are you talking about? That doesn't matter now. Yes, it does. Hitomi's shout stopped him in his tracks. Aki, right now, the thing I'm having the most trouble with is that you won't go to the hospital. Don't you get it? How can I possibly be happy with you helping me if you have to sacrifice your own sister to do it? Aki couldn't answer that, and he knew it. Please, go to the hospital. I'm asking you to, and I'm definitely someone in trouble, so it doesn't count as breaking your promise, right? I appreciate that, Aki said softly. And I'll remember it when this is all done. So yeah, how about we drop by at the hospital? The emotions Aki had been trying to hide now came welling to the surface. We'll go see Suzune, and after that, you can go look for your sister. Would that be okay with you? That would be more than okay with me. At long last, Hitomi smiled at him. Back in sync with each other, Aki and Hitomi headed to the hospital. Shibuya Central Hospital was one of the foremost general hospitals in Japan, outfitted with top-notch medical facilities and staffed by high-skilled personnel. Individuals like Suzune with rare blood types were sent to the hospital from far and wide because of its cutting hematology center. What's a hematology center? A hospital division that deals with blood. Its goal is to provide high-end care to patients with blood disorders, including blood screening, treatments, transfusions, the management and supply of blood products, and other related services. Aki asked Hitomi to stay in the waiting area while he'd headed into the hospital proper. From the visitor's entrance, he passed by the nurse's station, then entered the cardiovascular medicine section. What is that? The cardiovascular system includes the heart as well as the various blood vessels that circulate blood throughout the body. Cardiovascular medicine deals with heart and blood issues such as angina, heart attacks, heart failure, irregular pulse, and the like. Oh, I missed a little part there. And walked along a row of examination rooms. He walked by the first room as quietly as possible, catching the sight of a mother and daughter sitting together in chairs in the hallway. The mother was crying softly. Oh, Takuya. He's only 15, she muttered under her breath. The name Takuya didn't ring a bell. It was the only 15 that got a reaction out of Aki. Only 15. Couldn't imagine anything good coming after that. Be cruelly taken away when one was still so young. Aki could feel that woman's pain as deeply as it were his own. When he reached Suzune's room, Dr. Saeki, the attending physician, explained her condition. The doctor did his best to keep his explanation simple, but Aki was too worked up to process much of what he said. He did manage to wrap his head around a few things. At around 10 o'clock that morning, Suzune had a seizure. Oh, shoot. For a while, it had been touch and go, but finally her condition had stabilized. However, since she hadn't regained consciousness yet, she wasn't allowed any visitors. That was the gist, as far as Aki could tell. "What's your father doing today? He still hasn't come by," Dr. Saiki said. Aki wasn't sure what to tell him. It was certainly odd. There was no way his father wouldn't have rushed right away to the hospital if he had heard Suzune had taken a turn for the worse. "I'll give you a call once she's woken up. For now, you can head on home for the day." "All right. Please keep a close eye on her, Doctor." Somberly, Aki went to find Hitomi in the waiting area. Who is Aki's father? We saw him. He was the guy in Aki Electronics. Did an interview with Minorikawa. Outpatient reception had closed for the day, leaving the hospital quiet. His footsteps echoed softly in the corridors. Then as he walked along, a peculiar sound drew his attention. It had come from over by a base of a nearby stairwell. Aki took a peek around the corner. The sight that greeted him nearly made him gasp aloud. In the dim light ahead, he saw Kanan. She had some white guy pressed against the wall, knife to his throat. Aki quickly yanked back his head out of view. Could it be? Was this the man Kanan said she was after? That's Kanan and the US guy? Sounds like it. Aki had to resist the urge to go charging out there. Some amateur heading in half-cocked might well be more of a liability to Kanan than any sort of help. He heard her mutter something to the man in English. "We know nothing about Alfard's background, nationality, sex, and age." Aki could barely make out the words since it was all in English. He had no idea what they meant. But we do know that whoever they are, they have connections to Langley. Langley? Slang for the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, headquarters in Langley, Virginia. Similar to referring to the Japanese government as Nagatacho, the CIA has other nicknames including the company, the agency, the second government, the invisible government, and the coup maker. The coup makers? I didn't know this game was woke. Aki peeked out again, very cautiously, in time to see the man raise an eyebrow at Kanan's words. Interesting. That doesn't mean you need to threaten me at knife point, though. He flashed her a thin smile. The writer coming in with his opinions. It does, actually, because I happen to know that you're a CIA agent. He's a CIA agent! Technically known as officers, the CIA refers to its own spies as agents. Someone in charge of directing agents is called a case officer. Case officers are stationed at embassies across the world, like in the public guise of diplomats, soldiers, and the like. Oh my god, is this anti-American? No sooner were Kanan's words out than the man grabbed her arm and tried to hurl her against the wall. Just before her head connected, though, she jackknifed her upper body forward, then planted both feet against the wall and kicked off with tremendous force. She used her momentum to launch herself forward, regaining her position with her knife against the man's throat. Oh, he's got a gun! During this brief opening, the man had managed to draw a gun from inside his jacket. Now the barrel was pressed right against Keenan's heart. Aki swallowed the lump in his throat. How about we call it truce? Keenan said softly. She withdrew her knife. Yeah, sounds like you and me are both after the same thing. The man likewise lowered his gun. With a faint smile, Keenan turned her back on him and vanished down the adjacent stairwell. Aki had no idea what just happened. They were speaking in English. They stopped fighting, though, so this guy probably wasn't Kanan's mastermind after all. If only Aki spoke a little English, he might have been able to follow their conversation. He found himself wishing he'd taken school more seriously. When he looked again, he saw that the man also disappeared. Hitomi stood up from her chair as Aki hurried from the waiting room. Is this school propaganda? Yes. This is an anti-American, pro-school, anti-CIA game right now. Pro-Japanese. Pro-healthcare. Anti-foreigner. How's Suzune, she asked. For now, she's not in any immediate danger, they said. That's good to hear. But more importantly, Keenan was here just now. What? Why? This game is getting based. I'm not sure. I'm not smart enough to figure that out. Aki slumped his shoulders. Huh? What? I'm not quite sure what you meant. Exactly. I couldn't understand anything she was saying. Hell, he couldn't even figure out how to get through to Hitomi. May I have a moment? A voice spoke unexpectedly from behind Aki. It's John's CIA. His breath caught in his throat as he turned around. Standing there was the man Kanan had been struggling with. What's up? Aki asked. He tried to sound as nonchalant as possible, but the man wasn't looking at Aki. You're Hitomi Osawa, is that right? Yes. Hey, Aki snapped. Keep your distance. He stepped protectively in front of Hitomi. This guy, he's not what he looks like. Aki clenched his fists and adopted a defensive posture. Huh? Hitomi seemed panicked. Aki said, this might be the person Kanan was warning us about. I don't know who he is, but he is not our friend. Oh, you know Kanan, do you? The man spoke without changing his facial expression. She let a few things slip herself. Look, who the hell are you? Aki demanded. The man calmly reached into his jacket pocket. Fearing he might be about to draw his gun, Aki braced for action. My name's Jack Stanley. I'm a security assistant officer with the U.S. Embassy. Aki held back his punch as the man held out his ID card. What is an ID card? Well, diplomats are issued diplomatic passports and diplomatic ID cards by their home governments. Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs also issues its own form of diplomatic identification card. The CIA provides such identification to its operatives working overseas to help maintain their false identities. What? Wait, what? Oh, it's anti-CIA embassy? What does someone from the U.S. Embassy want with me? Hitomi asked timidly. You're being targeted by a dangerous criminal. I'm here to take you into protective custody. Custody? Aki's temper flared. Buzz off, pal. We're busy here. Busy searching for Maria Osawa? Stanley asked. Aki and Hitomi exchanged glances. I know the full details of the trouble you currently find yourselves in. All right then, Aki asked. Then you should know we don't have time to be taken into custody. I'm afraid you don't understand the situation we're dealing with. We're up against a dangerous international criminal here. Taking reckless action is only going to put her life in danger. Don't be a fool. This is no time to be a knight in shining armor. Hey! Aki was infuriated, but he couldn't think of a comeback. After all, it was true that Hitomi had run into danger time and time again while she was with him. But I'm already safe, Hitomi insisted. I'm only here right now because Aki had been protecting me. She eyed Stanley sharply. I've got Aki with me. I don't need your protection. Aki felt a surge of pride that practically brought tears to his eyes. If Hitomi would have let him, he would have given her an enormous hug. Stanley grimaced in resignation. All right. In that case, how about I join your search for Maria? I can help keep you safe that way instead. I don't know. Hitomi grabbed hold of Aki's sleeve. This Stanley fellow didn't have the most trustworthy face, Aki thought. But he realized that he might be biased after being chased around by foreigners all day. Yeah, that's true. It's good that he recognized that. After all, if this guy really was after Hitomi, he probably would have taken her by force. Not only did he have a gun on him, he was significantly skilled in martial arts to hold his own against Kaden. He would have no trouble taking down a single unarmed opponent like Aki. Hitomi, I get the impression this Stanley guy is not our enemy right now. Hitomi gave a slight nod. All right. I trust your judgment on this, Aki. Now then, what's the plan from here? Stanley asked. Not wandering aimlessly around town, I hope. There was a trace of snideness in his voice. Hey there, Kaladin. How was the stream? You can just keep your mouth shut, Aki replied. We can wander around town all day if we feel like it. Two can play the snarky game, he thought to himself. Poor Hitomi looked distressed. Very well. If that's the way you want, I can stay quiet. But first, I need to inform the police that I have Miss Osawa in my custody. Wait, hold on, Hitomi blurted. Hey there, Pyra. How you doing? That isn't a good idea. Stanley inclined his head. Why's that? Well, since you already seem to know most of the story, Hitomi quickly explained the kidnapper's threat and described the search for the minivan. Stanley remained quiet, listening with obvious interest. I see, he said when she had finished. Still, when that minivan exploded, didn't that make your promise to the kidnappers a moot point? Hitomi nodded. I suppose it did, didn't it? Let me ask just one more question. Do either of you know a detective by the name of Tatado? No, we haven't run into any detectives. Yeah, exactly. The only folks we seem to run into are guys who are after Hitomi. I see. A grim expression crossed Stanley's face. Right. I'm gonna get in touch with the investigation task force. I'll have them contact your parents for you. Would you mind speaking with them so they can confirm it's really you? Sure, alright, Hitomi said. Stanley got on his wireless and described their current circumstances to the police. Tano is the guy with the cane, yeah. Mr. Endo, hold on! Suddenly, Dr. Saiki appeared, running down the hallway. There's something I forgot to tell you. It's regarding your father. Oh? Aki got a sinking feeling. I got a call from him yesterday afternoon. He asked me something rather odd. Huh? Preparations for a transplant? I'm sorry, I'm not entirely sure why I understand what you're asking. Saiki clutched the receiver. Daisuke? Endo's brooding tone was more than a little disturbing. No, it's all right, Endo said. This is all just difficult to talk about it. Doctor, please forget I said anything. There's just one important thing I wanted to let you know. Yes? There's going to be a brain-dead woman coming your way at probably 9 o'clock this evening, I expect. Her blood type is Bombay. Bombay is the extremely rare blood type that Endo's daughter Suzune possessed. Any transplant donor for Suzune would also have to have the Bombay blood type. Since she has the same blood type as Suzune, the transplant itself isn't an issue. Endo continued. The only thing I'm concerned about is whether the procedure can be done within the limited time window. And I hate to trouble you, but I just called because I think it would be best to prepare for surgery as soon as possible. The more Saiki heard, the more disturbed he grew. Felt like he was listening to this man go on about some strange delusion. Doctor, please, just take good care of Suzune. With that, Endo hung up. Aki kept quiet as he listened to Dr. Saiki's tell his story. How can you forget to mention that? Yeah, right? Of course, that was yesterday, and I still haven't heard anything about a brain-dead girl turning up. After all, only God would know that someone would wind up in a state of brain death. But still, there was just something very strange about what your father said. Was it as if he was certain that someone would wind up brain dead, or... Stop right there, Aki exclaimed. Stanley and Hitomi turned in surprised. They were still in the middle of their wireless call to the police. Don't get me wrong, Doctor said hastily. I'm not trying to imply your father would hurt anyone. What I'm worried about is your father's mental state in... No! Aki interrupted him yet again. That's not it. His own words from earlier spun within his head. So long as we have these cameras, this guy has nowhere to run. The security cameras. I'm sure this is the place. The man with the cane. He'd been on the phone with someone. That didn't mean anything. That was just a coincidence. It couldn't be true. Aki searched desperately for some other explanation. That was it. Anyone from the downtown committee could have used the camera monitoring room. Yeah, no one's been here to check by today. Dad? Was it Dad? No dice. No one from downtown had been by the surveillance room today. It couldn't be. It couldn't. Aki began to tremble. Is something the matter? Hitomi asked. Aki, you're pale as a ghost. Aki gazed beseechingly back into her face. With just one simple question, he could clear this whole thing up. Please tell me I'm overthinking this. Oh, he's gonna ask her blood type. He prayed inwardly before asking. Hitomi, would you mind telling me your blood type? Huh? Why do you ask? Please, just tell me. I have a sort of weird blood type, Hitomi said. It's called Bombay. Oh no! The last piece of the puzzle fell into place. There was no longer any room for doubt. Aki found himself facing a sad and painful truth. Damn! Why? Why? With an anguished scream, Aki punched the wall as hard as he could. But his fist didn't hurt as much as his heart. Dad, why? To be continued. Damn, we hit the to be continued already? So not chasing after the guys probably stopped Aki from getting run over. Good job on the not dead, thanks. You look tired, sir. Yeah, I guess so. His reply was barely audible. The taxi stopped outside of Heaven Publishing. Minorikawa left a 1,000-yen bill on the seat and exited the cab. He was stumbling his way towards the building when someone called out to him. Mr. Minorikawa! For a moment, Minorikawa didn't recognize the man now idling his sedan at the curve. But he took a closer look when he realized it was Kenji Osawa! Oh, we can't jump because we haven't done anything. Oh, Mr. Osawa. Sorry, but I haven't been able to look into that thing you asked about yet. I see. That's quite all right. Osawa looked pale and haggard. Minorikawa's reporter sense started tingling. This guy is the key to something. He recalled what he heard the detective and his buddy talking about back at the scene of the explosion. Roughly 8 hours ago, they infected Maria Osawa with the UA virus. If we don't administer Kenji Osawa's antiviral before she develops symptoms... You're caught up in something big, aren't you? How do you know about that? Because, the reporter said simply, I'm Minoru Minorikawa. Osawa rolled his eyes. Well, that'll make this simpler, I guess. Get in. I'll tell you everything. Minorikawa hesitated. This might be his big chance to land a beyond incredible scoop. Yet, it felt like it was too late to matter. Still, landing a major story, selling out an issue of four-star general gossip, and putting Heaven Publishing on the road to solvency All that was the least you could do in Toyama's memory. You don't drop a story until you have what you need. Maybe it was too late to save Toyama. But Minorikawa got into the car. Osawa's tale was beyond anything Minorikawa had imagined. So they send you threatening emails, devise a plan to kidnap your daughter in order to get the antiviral, and now that that's failed, they're turning to bioterrorism. Finally, Minorikawa was able to flesh out the story behind the conversation he overheard earlier. And as he did, he could feel a growing sense of exhilaration. So basically, they're now effectively holding all the people in Shibuya hostage and demanding the antiviral. Is that it? Before Osawa could answer, a new idea occurred to Minorikawa. Wait, hold on. Why didn't they just start by holding the whole city hostage? Why did they have to go through all the trouble of kidnapping your daughter? I don't know, Osawa said, shaking his head. Perhaps they wanted the ransom money? For a mere 50 million yen? I can't imagine international terrorists bothering for that much. You can't know how terrorists think, Osawa spat. Let's just assume, though. Could there be some other reason they abducted your daughter? Osawa didn't reply. He was probably too preoccupied with finding a way to save his infected daughter to think about anything else. Still, something about the course of events didn't quite add up to Minorikawa. Whatever the case, if the criminals were after the antiviral, then sticking with Osawa ought to bring him closer to the truth. Minorikawa was still mulling over that when they arrived at the laboratory. The two men hopped out of the car and were immediately rushed by a pair of security guards who subdued them in a matter of moments. Hey, Minorikawa protested. What the hell is this? Unhand me, Osawa yelled. I'm Kenji Osawa. This is my lab. But evidently, that didn't matter to the guards. Another man emerged from the building. He and Osawa exchanged a few brief words. Judging from the tone of the conversation, this was someone who outranked Osawa at the company. Take him away. Take him away, toys. As the newcomer looked on, the guards dragged Osawa into the building. Hey! Minorikawa shouted at the man as he began to walk away. Don't you know what's going to happen to Shibuya? Don't you care? If you just stand by and let the people of this city die, Koshi Pharmaceutical is going to be held responsible. The man stopped in his tracks. And if that happens, you'll be ruined personally too, Minorikawa added. You know I'm right. That will be up for the police to decide. You're gonna regret this. Don't be a fool. Minorikawa's resolve was unwavering. His pen would mete out justice. He might have come close to forgetting what he stood for once. But now the old fire was back. I see. It seems this isn't something to leave unchecked. The man gestured with his jaw. Take him away. As well. More security guards surrounded Minorikawa. Hey, stop it. Let me go. But though he struggled fiercely, there was no escape. Once he was dragged through those laboratory doors, Minorikawa never wrote another article again. Bad end. I guess we'll play as Osawa now. Murdered by Umbrella. Became a zombie. Zombie reporter. I don't want to know how people feel. All I want to know is what viruses feel. I prefer viruses because they make no move to encroach on me from the other side of my microscope. They leave me free to let my thoughts wander as I wish. And while it may be true to say I understand viruses, I have never been able to understand my fellow humans. I don't know then. I don't know them. I don't know a single fundamental thing about them. With Tanaka dead, trying to use the backup passwords for the fingerprint scanner had become a hopeless endeavor. The only remaining means of gaining entry to the storage area was to issue an emergency unlock request to the electronic manufacturer. And in order to do that, they would need the approval of the 6 members of the board of directors. Returning to his study, Osawa called Makino's personal cell phone. "What is it?" Makino said gruffly as soon as he picked up. Osawa informed him of the situation, including Tanaka's death, and the fact that Maria was infected. The news left Makino at a loss for words. "Please," Osawa begged, "you need to hold an emergency board meeting." Makino was silent for a few moments. "I'm afraid I can't do that." "Why not? Are you just gonna sit by and let my daughter die?" Osawa raged. "And not just her. If Maria goes symptomatic... If Maria goes symptomatic... That was only still an if. But Osawa was reluctant to put his fears into words. "If she goes symptomatic, the UA virus will sweep throughout all of Tokyo." "I realize that," Makino replied. "But one of the board members is overseas on business. Holding a meeting is impossible." Despite the gravity of the situation, he sounded astoundingly nonchalant. Osawa couldn't back down now. There must be another option, like a web conference or something. "That doesn't help us if we can't get in touch with him," Makino huffed. "He went missing a few days ago in the middle of his business trip." "Went missing?" "The head of Okoshi's Pharmaceuticals New York branch has been missing since April 25th at 9 p.m. local time. There have been no demands for a ransom, and so the New York Police Department is investigating the possibility of some other form of foul play." Osawa was almost too appalled to be angry. "That's the most ridiculous lie I've ever heard. Would you like to speak to my on-site contact if you don't believe me?" It was like arguing with a child. If Makino was deliberately working against him, he'd never know if this disappearance was real or not. In that case, can you please appoint a representative in his stead? Osawa pleaded. "Selecting a representative is a complicated process. Even if we started right now, it would take until sometime tomorrow afternoon to complete." Tomorrow afternoon? By then, it would be too late for any of this to matter. "Sir, can't you see how absurd the things you're saying are?" "What would you have me do?" Makino barked. "These are the realities of corporate politics." "I understand, sir. You will do nothing for you. I understand, sir. You will do nothing for my daughter. That's what you're saying." "That's not what I'm saying," Makino replied. "Look, I'll see what I can do to appoint a representative more quickly. He hung up. His tone had suggested that waiting for an appointee wouldn't be a terribly hopeful prospect. I have no more allies, Osawa thought. All I have left are foes. He couldn't count on anyone anymore. Osawa was just going to have to get the antiviral by himself. He would just have to take Makino at his word. Right now, that was his only course of action. He couldn't count on anyone anymore. Osawa was just going to have to get the antiviral himself. Tanaka might be dead, but there still must be some way to get that lock open. Taking extra care to avoid the notice of the detectives, Osawa snuck out of the house and headed for the garage. Kipatsu. Now I'm assuming we get the jump from Minorikawa. Jump? As he was driving past Oyama, Osawa spotted a man he recognized walking along. He pulled up alongside him and called out through the window. Mr. Minorikawa! Oh, hi. Oh, Mr. Osawa. Sorry, but I haven't been able to look into that thing you asked about yet. See, that's quite alright. The business with I and Tanaka could wait until later. Right now, he needed to focus on protecting Shibuya. Yeah, we kinda rushed over I screaming out like a banshee when she found out he died. If he didn't get his hands on that antiviral, you're caught up in something big, aren't you? How did you know that? Because I'm Minoru Minorikawa. Well, the man's egotism had some justification. Maybe he didn't know the details, but he clearly had some inkling about Osawa's situation. Something clicked in Osawa's mind. He was up against the wall. Okoshi Pharmaceutical had told him they were going to let Maria die. It was past the point where he could resolve this peaceably, but he was not going to give up without a fight. When it came time, Osawa was sure this man would help him. Well, that'll make this simpler, I guess. Get in. I'll tell you everything. Minorikawa thought for a moment, then got into the passenger seat. Lucky I have an idea. Oh, okay. Shoot. How many bad ends are there? 85. How about after we finish Shibuya, we replay it, but in French? Why? As he drove to the lab, Osawa filled Minorikawa in on all the details, all the deets. The reporter listened intently, occasionally interrupting to ask a question. So how are you planning on getting your hands on the antiviral? He asked when Osawa had finished. I'm not sure. I figured I'd think of something after I got here. Minorikawa let out a nasal chuckle. Just improvising, huh? Ah, well, I'll back you up. At least I know I've found my way into something important. They pulled up outside the lab and the two men got out of the car. Immediately, a team of security guards burst out through the gate and forced Osawa into the ground. Hey, Minorikawa protested. What the hell is this? The guards had grabbed him as well. Unhand me, Osawa yelled. I'm Kenji Osawa. This is my lab. Mr. Osawa, Minorikawa shouted. What the hell is going on here? But Osawa was just as confused. He looked up to see Makino standing before him. Sir, tell these thugs to let me go. But Makino just frowned silently down at him. So not only will you not help me, you're actively getting in my way? Oh, this is the wrong guy. Osawa glared up at his boss. Maria's life. Now countless human lives are at risk. And there's nothing that you alone can do about it. That's what I need you to understand. Makino gave a signal to the guards, who proceeded to drag Osawa away. The scientists writhed with despair at his own impotence. In the end, there was nothing I could do. Bad Endo. Makino's meddling. So I guess what we gotta do is not take the car? Still, he'd just have to take Makino at his word. Right now, that was his only course of action. Osawa sat down in front of his computer and quietly closed his eyes. If only I could just go to sleep and wake up tomorrow morning and find all of this resolved. All I'm asking for is a miracle. But he knew reality would never be so kind. He could hold his eyes shut as long as he wanted, and it wouldn't make this hopeless situation go away. He felt the anxiety welling up inside him until it seemed like he was going to explode. Needing a distraction from his helplessness, Osawa opened Ayanet. He knew this was mere escapism, but he couldn't just sit down and do nothing while waiting for Makino to call back. He posted a new topic with the title, Aya Fortune Teller. He was going to shitpost on online forums for the next 4 hours. I tried the Aya Fortune Teller. My results basically said I was a bad person who can't connect to the people around me. And you know what? That's exactly right. I'm only interested in my own little world. That's probably why my wife and my assistant at work got so fed up with me. It's the same with my 2 daughters. What sort of things are they interested in? Do they have a lot of friends? What are their aspirations for the future? I don't know. Any of those things. It never even occurred to me to find out. I'm such a terrible father. The light grows dim. Osawa's fingers ceased their tapping on their keyboard as he thought back to when Maria and Hitomi were younger. Daddy, Daddy! The two girls would follow him around like a pair of puppies. Their father was their everything. That much was clear just by looking at their faces. He felt a ticklish giddiness at having his girls cling to him so. He'd never felt anything like it in his life, but there were times where he also found it tiresome. I'm sick of being the person I am. There's nothing I can do about that, though. I'm sure it's far too late for me to change. He poured out all his negative emotions into his post. It felt like stream of consciousness drivel, but he didn't hesitate to write it all down all the same. He wanted other people to know what a miserable excuse for a human being he was. At last, when he couldn't think of anything else to add, he posted his bitter confession to the forum. He was staring numbly at the monitor when he heard a furious shout from the next room. "You've got to be kidding me!" It was Kajiwara, and Osawa had never heard him so angry. Osawa headed into the living room and found Kajiwara embroiled in a vehement argument with the other detectives. "I don't care what HQ policy is, I will not just quietly go along with this." Kajiwara had already screamed himself red in the face. "You're out of line," snapped one of the MPD detectives. "Who?" "Well, that is Kiichi Sawatari with the Metropolitan Police Department 1st Criminal Investigation Section. Having heard of Kajiwara's past deeds from friends at the Shibuya precinct, he recommended to his boss that Kajiwara be assigned to the investigation at the Osawa residence. After seeing the detective's interactions with the Osawas, he is confident that his recommendation was in the right. However, given the circumstances, he can't help but take a cold stance towards Kajiwara." "Hold your tongue. I don't care if I'm out of line." "You may have talents, I'll give you that," the other detective said. "But you're a precinct detective, and this isn't your jurisdiction. It's not your place to question orders from higher-ups." "Wait," Osawa thought. "Kajiwara really is a real detective after all?" "What?" "Go on, explain the situation to Mr. Osawa." Kajiwara bit his lip in frustration at the other detective's orders. "Very well," he said. But before he could say any more, Osawa noticed that the police equipment had been all cleared off the table. "Hold on," Osawa said. "What's going on? Has something happened?" "Allow me to explain, sir," Kajiwara said. His bitterness showed plainly in his face. "We've been recalled, sir." "Recalled?" "Well, the MPD has established a security force headed by the members of its Public Security Bureau to deal with the bioterrorist threat. Because the kidnapping task force had not yet found Maria, and she is infected with the virus, the task force personnel have instead been absorbed into the security force and will continue their work under its direction." Osawa narrowed his eyes, fighting to keep the confusion from his face. What do you mean by that? Oh. He was shaking, terrified to have his suspicions confirmed. "I'm truly sorry, sir, for having been unable to help you." Kajiwara gave a deep and solemn bow. "But Maria? What's going to happen to Maria?" I'm feeling the hiccup symptoms. Another unit has been tasked with bringing your daughter into custody, sir. That much, at least, Osawa could process. You're gonna place her under quarantine, aren't you? Kajiwara's lips stiffened, but he nodded. In order to minimize the spread of the virus, so I'm told. No! Osawa cried. You can't do that! If you do, there won't be any way to save her. His head spun. Please, I beg of you. You need to get Maria to me. I might be able to save her. Lucky, what's your blood type? It's blood type P. When Kajiwara didn't respond, he turned to the other detectives. Please, don't. You can't place Maria under quarantine. But the detectives' only answer was to avert their eyes. Why are you all ignoring me? Please, you have to listen. If you bring her to me, I can figure something out. I know I can. Plunked himself down on the floor, yelling and flailing his arms like a child throwing a tantrum. No. The detectives exchanged sullen looks with one another and walked off and left him there. He knew he must have been a sorry sight, but nevertheless, he kept shouting after them. Please, don't stand by and let my daughter die. They took the table with them. Only Kajiwara remained with them in the living room. I'm sorry, sir. This was beyond my ability to stop. He gave another apologetic bow. Osawa felt suddenly deflated. No, you've done a fine job, Detective Kajiwara. It's me who should be sorry. I've made such a disgraceful display of myself. That's not true, sir. In fact, I'm deeply moved. I can tell how much Maria must mean to you. Osawa shook his head. If I'd really been thinking about Maria, I would have made an effort to work with you detectives more. It was all just self-absorbed shouting, a moment of emotional selfishness. And yet, as a result, you convinced me to stay here with you. Detective? Kajiwara proceeded to pull out his phone and put in a request with the task force headquarters to remain with the Osawa residence. He got into a heated spat with his commanding officer, but ultimately received permission to stay on as police liaison with Osawa. Well, the detective said when he hung up, you see, there are some people who are legitimately moved by a parental display of emotion. Hey bro, you finished with MM7? No, we're going to have some more White Magic 7 next month. Even if I'm not certain that I can do very much in staying here with you. That's not true, Osawa replied. There's plenty you can help me with. He looked into Kajiwara's face and smiled. For instance, I can have a banana whenever I want. You can find things that have gone missing. That fried egg on rice you made me was delicious. Banana? He's gonna pull it out. I can have a banana whenever I want. Kajiwara returned Osawa's grin even more brightly. Yes, yes, of course. By all means, have as many as you like. Then produced a pair of bananas from his pocket, handing one to his companion. Banana Bros. Osawa peeled his banana and took a hearty bite. The mild sweetness was pleasant and soothing. It was a flavor that brought back memories. I often eat bananas when I go to the park with my daughter, Kajiwara muttered between mouthfuls. I didn't realize you had a daughter, Detective. She just started grade school this year. Oh, really? She must be adorable. Well, I don't get to see her as much as I'd like. A lonely sort of smile crossed Kajiwara's face. Why's that? Doing this job caused me to neglect my family. Finally, about 2 years ago, my wife hit me with the divorce paperwork. I wanted to be able to keep our daughter with me, but, well, the law tends to favor the mother when it comes to the custody issues. Chocolate? The detective then pulled out 2 bars of chocolate from his pocket. It's good to have something sweet when you're exhausted, he said. Osawa took one but said nothing. More recently, my ex-wife has been talking about getting remarried, Kajiwara continued. And she wants me to stop seeing our daughter. He bit into his own chocolate bar with a soft snap. It's no less than I deserve, but it still hurts. Osawa couldn't help but sympathize. The man was losing his daughter. He was someone he could really talk to. He was sure of that. He was sure of that much now. Detective, I apologize. I've kept things from you because I was worried they involved classified corporate information. Oh? Kajiwara's eyes glimmered with interest. Earlier today, I received some emails. They could be pertinent to the case. Would you mind letting me see them? Osawa shook his head. On the contrary. He got himself a banana, bro. Back in front of his computer, Osawa saw that Ayanet was still open. Oh, he forgot to close his tabs. Absolute buffoonery. Pretty Honey had responded to his forum post. One moment. Just let me read this. Osawa read the response. There was no time to be looking at the internet. Osawa closed the browser. Wait, someone responded to my shitpost. One moment. Well, just let me read this. Osawa read the response. I got that same result. Do you really think it's too late? Don't give up hope. Hang in there. Emoji? I don't even know what that means. It's never too late. Yeah, every family has its share of problems. Like, you'll never find one that doesn't, I'm sure. When it comes to family, there's no such thing as game over. Collecting views. So don't let it get you down, Julie. Julie? Aye. Besides, I did learn one thing from reading your post. In the end, a father's happiness is his daughter's happiness. Emoji. Kajiwara peered into the monitor. A young girl is posting to a forum for people 40 and older? It's Pretty Honey. She always replies to my threads. The detective furrowed his brow. I see. Something the matter? No. That last line there just has me curious is all. A young girl writing something like that, well, that's neither here nor there right now. Hey there, Azura. Let me see those emails, if you would. Osawa opened his email. He pulled up the images of the human testing on the monitor. What is this? Kajiwara stared at the monitor as if unable to look away. These are images from unauthorized clinical testing of an antiviral drug I developed, carried out by my company without my knowledge. Images of a... I'm sorry, what was that? The detective frowned at the unfamiliar terminology. In simple terms, the antiviral is a wonder drug to combat the UA virus. Hold on. Maria's infected with the UA virus, isn't that right? Yes. UA is a species of virus discovered in South Africa relatively recently. Roughly 12 hours after infection, the patients develop a cough, then a fever, then begin vomiting, and ultimately begin to bleed uncontrollably from all over, resulting in death. The mortality rate is... Osawa was reluctant to say it. Kajiwara held his breath, waiting. It's nearly 100%. Kajiwara shuddered. Well, wait, he said after a moment. If you have this wonder drug, then Maria... Osawa shook his head. Without Tanaka, I have no means of getting it out of the lab. Kajiwara's frown deepened. I see. It may not be much to go on, but I think we can put together at least one piece of our little mystery here. What is a mystery? Isn't that just Ebola? Super Ebola. Something difficult or impossible to explain. An enigma. You see plenty of books titled The Mystery of Such and Such or The Secret of Whatever on bookstore shelves, but when you read them, you're invariably disappointed by the mystery not being that mysterious after all. All these opinions. Editor, what are you doing? The beasts. Don't get me started on those mystery novels. Pardon me one moment. Kajiwara inspected the email address of the sender A and brought up the mail header. You don't see email addresses like this much. It's seemingly from a foreign country, but that could be fake. You can tell that from the email? The detective flashed a little grin. Take a look here. If we just do this, and then this... His fingers flew over the keyboard, calling up the header details. Singling out the received from field. This set of 4 numbers at the bottom is the sender's IP address. Think of it as an ordinarily hidden location marker of sorts. Exactly. He's like the best detective, ultra detective. As he spoke, the detective pulled up a website called IP Station. He copied and pasted the set of 4 numbers and pressed the enter key. The monitor showed the name of the provider, connection method, and other such details. Who is the provider? Hacker Man. Detective Hacker Man. Well, a provider is a vendor that provides an internet connection service. A typical internet connection requires a dedicated line. Customers who don't already have one must make a contract for one with a provider. When the provider establishes your connection to the internet, or assigned an identifying number called an IP address. Osawa couldn't make heads or tails of most of it, but one thing drew his eye. Access point, Shibuya Ward, Tokyo. Kajiwara went into the email program option and checked the server info for Osawa's connection. Deep furrows formed into his forehead. This is the same provider that you use, Mr. Osawa. What does that mean? What kind of internet connection do you have here at your house? What sort? Well, it's plugged in over there, but Osawa pointed at the router. And does everyone in your family use that same line? It's coming from inside the house. Yes! Someone's in the walls! Grandma's in the walls! Yes, I think so. It's I, isn't it? Of course it is. Kajiwara opened up a command prompt and typed hypconfig. Oh boy, he's really hacking. A literal prompt for users to issue computer control commands via keyboard instead of a mouse. Also frequently used to refer to the window or program allowing for such. Okay, so if the same numbers we saw before pop up here, that's a bad sign. Oh? Osawa stared at the monitor. Kajiwara pressed enter, and a black window covered in white alphanumeric characters appeared. What the heck? Kajiwara muttered under his breath. Wait, what's going on? Osawa asked. Explain simply so I can understand. Making an email address is simple enough, but the typical person wouldn't be able to fake an IP. It's very likely that these emails were sent from another computer inside this house. Osawa had to stifle a gasp. The emails had been sent from his own house at around 11 o'clock that morning. Since Osawa hadn't sent them himself, that left only one possible culprit. Wait, what about Tanaka? Suddenly, his phone rang, nearly startling him out of his seat. Makino's name showed up on the incoming call display. Osawa quickly picked up. Is there an update on the emergency board meeting? He blurted. Makino's voice was quiet and subdued. I tried pulling whatever strings I could, but to no avail. I'm afraid holding a board meeting today just won't be possible. The phone fell from Osawa's hand. His only possible means of saving Maria was now gone. To be continued. All right, and I think this will be a good time to call it there for tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget, we got another stream in 2.5 hours. We're going to be playing some Elden Ring. So tune into that if you're interested. And on that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.